Radio.
Hey, Dabo Swinney, congrats. I got you in, baby.
This is entertainment. People pay to watch this.
Pass to a cutting Hiltz. He darts in. He scores!
People actually subscribe.
All across central New York.
Time expired! Syracuse has done it!
It's Drive Time with your host, Tim Leonard.
Hey, guess what? I'm getting wide, man.
We welcome you into Drive Time. Happy Thursday to everyone out there. Orange basketball having a pretty nice week. ACC SEC Challenge for the men's team was a thriller back on Tuesday night. We're still riding the high of that one. A 62-60 victory over 13th ranked Tennessee. And then the women's team last night followed it up with an OT win over Auburn to get to 7-1 on the season. Women won it 66-60. Very similar score. Not the prettiest game ever last night for the women, but they are off to a nice start to the season. And a couple big non-conference victories against the SEC in the ACC SEC Challenge this week. So plenty to discuss, as always, as we bring you in from 5 to 6 p.m. on weeknights here on Drive Time. Tim Leonard with you, and we want to hear from you over the next hour at the phone lines, 315-437-7644. Always the phone number to call at 4ESPN44. We will talk a good deal of Syracuse football recent news after Fran Brown spoke yesterday during the National Signing Day press conference. React to some of that a little bit and try and make sense of the Calvin Russell sweepstakes right now. And what are the chances that the five-star wide receiver commit for Syracuse, who opted not to sign yesterday, and reports indicate he is signing tomorrow in the final day of the early signing period window. What should we make of all of this? Is Calvin Russell coming to Syracuse? Is he just delaying his decision to come to Cuse? Should we be worried? Is a Florida school stepping in? Is Michigan? Is Miami? Hard to make sense of what is going through the young man's head right now, and this is why high school recruiting and football recruiting and high-level recruiting is a tough and dangerous game to predict. But definitely not good news yesterday that Calvin Russell did not ink his Syracuse commitment in the earliest opportunity that he could. And certainly teams are making a late push for him. They've been making a push for a five-star wide receiver throughout. He has said throughout this process that he is 100% committed to Syracuse, but every recruit in the history of ever has also said that. He did say as recently as a couple weeks ago that it is done, and don't worry about the fact that Syracuse has been struggling. The recruiting deal for him is done, and he is still all in on Fran Brown. And then he spoke yesterday, and he was flashing the U sign on an Instagram live story, the Miami U, yesterday. So we will see. It seems like we're going to find out once and for all tomorrow about the fate of Calvin Russell, and that will be a big deal. That is the biggest recruit in some 2 decades for Syracuse football, and a big part of why they have a top 30 recruiting class in the country for the 2026 cycle under Fran Brown. We'll talk some today as well about who could be the next defensive coordinator for Syracuse football. One interesting note from Fran Brown's press conference yesterday is he basically ruled out the chances of that being Will Muschamp. And I see the phone lines are ringing at 315-437-7644, so we can get to some of your thoughts on the phone lines on any of these topics, Syracuse basketball, Syracuse football, whatever else you want to discuss. We'll also chat with Chris Brown in about 10 minutes. Chris Brown of the Buffalo Bills radio network and their play-by-play man will get the rundown on the Buffalo Bills and look towards their big game Sunday at 1 p.m. back at home, taking on the Bengals. But we've got a turkey from Nick in Vegas. He has led off the show 3 days in a row, all 3 days. We have done it this week. And Nick, I always appreciate when you hop on here on Drive Time. What is on your mind today, my friend?
Do you want me to call you TL, or is it okay to call you Tim?
You can call me whatever you want, Nick.
Just not late for supper, right? That's the only thing.
Yes, I guess that would be the only thing. But TL, it seems TL is going to have a life of its own at this point. So I guess I just better embrace it.
All right, I want to talk about Calvin Russell for a second.
Yep.
So Michigan signed a 4-star receiver today. Based off of what I've read and what I've heard, it's because they're now out of the Calvin sweepstakes.
Yeah.
And Miami was the second school involved, and Javon Edmonds from .com has publicly stated that he interviewed the mother, spoke to the mother several times, and she does not want Calvin to stay in Miami.
Yeah, the Miami stuff is weird, right? I mean, Pete Nako said Miami's not in the picture, but why is he flashing a U on his Instagram story? And then the thing that stood out to me when Fran spoke yesterday and was indirectly speaking about Calvin Russell, he was really dancing that line of not talking about Calvin Russell. We all knew he was talking about him, but he said something like there are a lot of good schools down in Florida that you can go to as well and get a good education, but we like where we're at. So, I mean, that made me think of Miami. I know Florida, you look at their boards and they think that they've got a shot now. So I'm not sure what to make of it, but I mean, why are you flashing the U on your Instagram story if Miami's out of it?
It's got a lot to do with Malachi Tonin and his relationship with him.
Could be, yeah.
But you have to also remember, Kadarius Hughes and Cameron Wilson both flipped back to Syracuse, right? Well, Kadarius flipped back, and Cameron just did not flip, right? But
yeah. And for those that don't know that are listening, just for point of clarity, Kadarius Hughes went to Miami Northwestern, or is at Miami Northwestern, right? So he's great friends.
That's correct.
We would imagine, yeah.
And that whole thing was, they were a combo deal, right? Calvin's the reason why he's coming to Syracuse to begin with.
Yeah, we're hoping that's a big part of why Kadarius Hughes wanted to come. Yeah, so, I mean, that's a good sign for sure. And then I'm sure you're going to get to this, but I did see Will Fong, the national recruiting analyst, was saying today that his sources believe Syracuse is still the front runner here. It's just it's very odd. I mean, it doesn't really matter if Calvin Russell just says tomorrow, after thinking about it some more, I'm in with Fran Brown. But what do you think? Do you think he's just leveraging here?
I'm going to throw a curveball at you, because if you read what Will Fong wrote today, he said he just wanted some more time to think about it. And then Fran's MO lately has been PR, right? So why would he not separate it and make it his own day to help build his own brand? Because Calvin and him have the same NIL agent, right? And now, if he announces tonight or tomorrow, it's his day. He's not sharing the stage with several other players, and he's going to get the notoriety, which is going to help increase his brand more so than more money in NIL from the school.
I see what you're getting at. To me, my thought on that is it increases Calvin Russell's brand. It doesn't really do any. It doesn't do any good for Syracuse's brand necessarily. So,
well, it does. It does in a way, because then Fran can say, "Well, you know what? Fran Brown beat out a late push."
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they would have theorized to do this, but I do think that there is something to be said for maybe Calvin Russell wants to be in the limelight a little bit more, and Calvin Russell wants his decision to be all over ESPN, and he's getting that by pushing it to Friday. Yeah.
And that's what I meant by brand, right? His brand, number one, but it also makes Fran look good.
Yeah, if he stays, right? If he stays committed to Syracuse,
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, now it doesn't look good. And we posted the clip yesterday, and you go through the comments on Q Sports Talk on our Twitter page, and everyone's kind of laughing at Fran currently for the way that they feel like Calvin Russell's definitely leaving. I mean, usually when you see this, the player leaves. It's not common that you see someone on Wednesday, National Signing Day, the first day, say, I want to think about it more, and then on Friday they say, actually, I'm still going to Syracuse. Maybe it's a little bit more common than I'm giving it credit for, but it's usually an indicator that someone is making a late push and someone is coming in over the top, potentially.
In the last point, I will tell you, and there's no doubt I think Michigan made another run at him.
Yeah.
Right? I think that was 100% the case. But at the end of the day, Fran was way too calm yesterday at that press conference because he was booming confidence and wasn't sweating it at all. And if you remember when one of the reporters asked who the leaders are for the freshman class coming in, he started with Zaid Lott, but then he said, and the other guy I'm going to finish up this week.
Yeah. He's confident. He's been a confident guy since he stepped on campus. This is going to be interesting. I mean, I'm sort of leaning, the more I think about it, I'm leaning towards he might end up just picking Syracuse tomorrow or signing with Syracuse tomorrow after all. But who knows? I mean, it's certainly been an odd last 24 hours or so with this Calvin Russell thing.
Agreed. And I think I'm fairly confident. I would say 80% confident that I think it's pretty much Syracuse.
All right.
And that's it. So.
Well, that's good to hear. I appreciate you hashing that out with me, Nick. We always appreciate you calling in.
All right, Tim. Have a great day, and I'll hopefully talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Let's see if we can make it 4 days in a row with Nick in Vegas tomorrow. And Nick is all over the recruiting news, and he's all over Twitter talking about the latest stuff with Syracuse football. And I'm sure that he's read everything there is to read about this, just as I have, I feel like, over the last 3-4 hours kind of getting ready for the show. It's all speculation. We don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow. We do know that we're going to come on and we're probably going to react to Calvin Russell's decision tomorrow on the show. And if it is that Calvin Russell wants to be in the limelight and he wants to make his decision a little bit more notable on Friday, that could be the case. It also could be that he's trying to get a little bit more money and his agent is trying to get a little bit more money out of Syracuse or leverage what they have in the situation right now. I do remember when we had John Garcia on probably sometime in the summer, a good 3-4 months ago now, and John Garcia is a national recruiting analyst for Rivals. We had him on Orange Nation specifically really to talk about Calvin Russell because he's connected with Calvin Russell. He's down in the Miami area. He goes to his games. He follows him. He's talked to him. And he kind of has a good sense of the Calvin Russell decision and what went into his mindset on committing to Syracuse. And to paraphrase, I remember John Garcia in that conversation 3-4 months ago saying that he believes Miami isn't really right in it with Syracuse. It's more Syracuse and Michigan because Michigan was fine with him playing basketball. And that ties back to Dusty May being down in Florida in that area and really liking him as a basketball player first. And now Dusty May is the head coach at Michigan. Miami doesn't seem as interested in him playing basketball. And as long as his comments hold true from when he committed to Syracuse, it seems like Calvin Russell is very interested in playing basketball. And that was a big part of why he chose Syracuse. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens tomorrow. Let's work in a break. When we come back, Chris Brown of the Buffalo Bills Radio Network joins us here on Drive Time on ESPN Radio, QSportsTalk.com.
Burdick Toyota.
Yeah, Kyra has been fun to work with on the broadcast. Glad you guys have enjoyed her as well. Yeah, I don't understand why I'd be throwing up the U, really, like we discussed. I mean, Nick could be right. Could just be he's friendly with a lot of guys there, and Malachi Tony. I mean, I don't know. Maybe someone was on the Instagram Live from Miami. I'm not really sure. I think it was an Instagram Live. Oh, interesting, Mike. I appreciate that. Miami not involved. Michigan neither. Florida, LSU, and FSU contacted him Tuesday. That makes sense because that would tie into what Fram was saying that, there's some good schools in Florida. Boom Boom Mex turns into Boom Boom Italiano, I believe, in the month of December. They have a seasonal menu deal. So we've been running the Boom Boom Mex. Now it's Boom Boom Italiano. Yeah. Seems like he cares about Miami. I mean, it is possible his agent was just like, all right, there's been a little bit of a late push. We can make a show of this kind of and make it a bigger deal. I do think if Fran was worried about losing Calvin Russell, he probably would have just fell back on, I can't talk about recruits until they sign. But he seemed committed to toe that line of talking about said recruit. He seemed kind of, I mean, he had to know that question was coming, and he had to have a plan for it. Yeah, she did play. I saw that. Or just keep the 5-star, Kev. That'd be nice.
1200 AM and 1440 AM.
4-star now. Because, Syracuse.
Watch your favorite ESPN Syracuse sports talk shows on QSportsTalk.com.
We roll along with Drive Time. Tim Leonard back with you. Talking a little Calvin Russell before we hit the break. Orange football 5-star wide receiver delayed his decision in terms of signing until tomorrow. So we're all waiting with bated breath for that tomorrow. Should note, Mike McAllister, our good friend, is in the chat right now on QSportsTalk.com. You can be in the chat as well. And he was informing us that Miami and Michigan are not involved. It is more Florida, Florida State, and LSU who have made a late push that is maybe contributing to Calvin Russell delaying his decision. But let's talk some Bills football now, as we do during our Thursday drive time every week when the Bills are in game mode, and they will be playing a big one against the Bengals on Sunday. We bring on Chris Brown of the Buffalo Bills Radio Network, their play-by-play man. And Chris, just give me a sense right now of what your vibe is covering the Bills, because it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride from my vantage point, but got a nice win last week, and now you're sitting at 8-4 on the season after the nice win over the Steelers.
Yeah, I really controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I thought it was their best gap integrity tackling game from a run defense perspective. The Steelers have a lot of things wrong with them, but they can still run the football pretty capably, and Buffalo shut that down and took that away and put the game on Rodgers. And it's pretty clear they don't have a whole lot in the passing game to rely upon besides DK Metcalf and the occasional throw to their giant tight end, Darnell Washington. And it became, they were able to pull away and pretty much control that game from start to finish. So an encouraging performance on the road, where going into that game, they were 2-3 on the road. So they've evened their road record at 3-3. And, under Sean McDermott, this has been a very good team in terms of closing out regular seasons, 18-3 in the month of December since 2020. So I think they know what's in front of them now. The division title is all but lost. They have single-digit chance to pull that out. They would need New England to lose 3 of their last 4. I don't see that happening. So trying to play for the best possible wild card seed you can get right now.
Yeah, they do play the Patriots next week, but the Patriots have a pretty light schedule, as they have really throughout the entire season. Bills taking on the Bengals on Sunday. Remember Joe Burrow back for the Bengals, but hitting on the game last week in the win over the Steelers, obviously it feels like when the Bills can run the football like that, the Bills are really hard to stop. And they did it last week, and they were just constantly running seemingly the same play over and over against Pittsburgh. Did you notice any adjustments in the run game or in the blocking scheme? I know they were down a couple offensive linemen due to injury, but that was really productive in terms of the ground game against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they really dictated play. They were the more physical team. And, yeah, they had 2 backup offensive tackles in there, including Alec Anderson at right tackle, who really hadn't lined up at tackle since his days at UCLA, where he was a 2-year starter. He projected more inside to guard center in the NFL because his arms aren't super long. But he plays with an edge, and they made it easy for him and for Ryan Vandemark at left tackle because they ran it a ton and just said, fire off the ball. And they capably handled, some of the big-name defensive linemen, whether it was Cameron Hayward or T.J. Watt. I mean, T.J. Watt at the end of the game has 4 assisted tackles. The best way to handle an elite pass rusher is to run right at him, and they did that.
Watt also said after the game that it felt like they were just running the same play over and over, and they couldn't stop it. Is that true? Was it pretty much the same scheme, same run concept over and over, or do you think that's maybe being blown out of proportion a little bit?
No, they pretty much ran 2 different run plays for 90% of their rushing calls in the game, and that's what stupefied me the most about Pittsburgh's defensive plan. I don't know what Terrell Austin, the DC, was thinking, because if they're still gashing you on those 2 plays, sell out to stop that, to make them do something else. They never did that. Put 10 in the box if you have to. Dare them to throw. Do something. And they just never pivoted off their original game plan. So the Bills just kept running the football, and we're all too happy to do so, knowing that if they got into a drop-back passing game, you run the risk of Josh getting hit with 2 backup tackles out there.
For Buffalo is, can they establish the ground game in terms of your confidence level week in and week out of the Bills winning? I know we talked a couple weeks ago about that Buccaneers game. The takeaway was kind of they unleashed Josh Allen a little bit, but now we've seen them get back to the ground game some. I guess it's matchup dependent, but is that the biggest key for you right now, at least with the Bills offense? Just can they run the football? Is that the biggest key?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of been their identity for the most part. They leaned back into it this past week against Pittsburgh. I think there is some opponent-specific changes week to week. You're playing a really good pass rush unit. You probably want to focus on your run game and really make it work after you saw what happened to Josh in Houston a few weeks ago. So, if you face a defense like that, yeah, you're going to be run game dependent. But I think we all have to remember you do have the league MVP at quarterback. So if you want to mix in a short to intermediate passing game and be more balanced, I think the option could be there, particularly against a defense like Cincinnati, which, while they have improved their own run defense of late, across the board, they are pretty awful defensively, and it looks like they're going to be without their best pass rusher again this week in Trey Hendrickson, who's got a pelvic and a hip injury. So, yeah, you can run the ball, stay in favorable down and distance, and use your passing game off of it, but this is a pass defense that's the worst in football.
Yeah, the Bengals defense has been a nightmare this season and really historically bad. But they get Joe Burrows back, so this is definitely not your average 4-8 football team. Obviously, they looked much better when they got Joe Burrows back last week. Where do you see this game coming down to on Sunday, knowing that the Bengals are an improved team from what their record shows?
Yeah, I mean, if the Bills want to play the time of possession, ball control game to keep the ball out of Burrow's hands, the key there is you're going to have to finish drives with touchdowns. You can't win the time of possession battle and kick field goals against this offense because they do know how to score points. I think this is going to be the first week where they have Burrow, Higgins, and Chase on the field since week 2 because the anticipation is that Higgins will emerge from concussion protocol and get cleared after missing last week's game. He's been practicing on a limited basis. So we'll have to wait and see for official clearance, but that's the anticipation. And, the Bills have corners that can run with those guys. Christian Benford has largely been tasked with following the opponent's top receiver 5 of the last 6 games, did it last week against DK Metcalf. And in 10 man-to-man coverage snaps, he didn't give up a reception. He's playing much better ball here down the stretch than he did at the beginning of the season. And I think Hairston is capable of running with these guys as well. So you might have guys you can match up at least against their top 2, but as we know, their passing game goes deeper than that. And Joe Burrow is, like a surgeon out there, almost like an idiot savant, if you will. He just has another level of mental processing out there with his passing game, and he gets it out quick, which kind of neutralizes your pass rush. That's the challenge. So, the Bills can hold on to the ball and run it and run clock as well to give Burrow fewer possessions. But the key there is you better finish your drives in the end zone.
Chris Brown is with us of the Buffalo Bills Radio Network. Bills taking on the Bengals, 1 p.m. kick on Sunday. You can listen to the game on our K-Rock station with Chris on the call of that one. You bring up cornerbacks, and I saw Darius Slay claimed off waivers yesterday. Now it seems like Darius Slay is looking over his options. Is there any update that you can share in regards to that?
All we know is this decision-making process is supposed to take just a few days. He's not going to drag it out here. He's just going to figure things out. So the Bills will retain his rights through that decision-making process that he feels he needs to undertake. The problem is they waived Jamarcus Ingram, a corner who's, been a depth player for them the last couple of years, and he's since been claimed by the Houston Texans. So it's not like they can kind of go back to him and say, hey, look, this guy's going to retire. Can we welcome you back? He's already on the Houston Texans roster, and he's probably pretty happy about it since he's a Texas native. So they're going to have to pivot in another direction if, in fact, Slay decides I'm done playing football.
Something we will monitor there. What about Bill's injury updates? I know a lot of fantasy owners are wondering about Dalton Kincaid, probably in particular, and I guess the offensive line, the tackles from last week. Anything you can share on relevant injury updates this week?
Yeah, I mean, Kincaid's been practicing on a limited basis. What's interesting is it's no longer just a hamstring injury. There's also a listing of a knee injury as well. Not sure where that came from because that was not the injury that pushed him out of the lineup a few weeks ago against Miami. So that's something to keep an eye on. Although 2 straight days of limited practice would indicate perhaps he's trending in the right direction. I know Deion Dawkins he's still in the concussion protocol, but practiced yesterday and then practiced today without the red non-contact jersey. So that's an encouraging sign. That would indicate he's in step 4 of the 5-step return to play protocol. So practiced again today, as I said, without the non-contact jersey. So he comes in tomorrow morning, takes his baseline test, and if there are no symptoms from the activity in today's practice on the test tomorrow, I think he's got a shot to get full medical clearance, at which point he'd be able to play in Sunday's game. Right tackle Spencer Brown's also practicing on a limited basis, but we'll have to see where that goes between now, and the final injury report designation Friday afternoon. The other development is A.J. Epinesa did not practice today, sidelined with a foot injury, and that's going to thin out the pass rushing group even further because Joey Bosa not expected to play with a hamstring injury suffered in the Pittsburgh game last week. So you're down to 2 healthy defensive ends on the active roster. So they would presumably need to call up both Morgan Fox, who's a veteran formerly of the Rams, who's been on the practice squad for the last 3 weeks. He would be a call-up that made sense. And maybe even Shaq Lawson as well, who was just signed to the practice squad last week and is now on his 3rd stint with the Bills.
All right, so we'll be keeping an eye on all of that. Chris, we appreciate the time and enjoy the call on Sunday against the Bengals.
All right, take care. Have a good weekend.
All right, that is Chris Brown, our Thursday guest here on Drive Time. Buffalo Bills Radio Network, their play-by-play man, and a very important stretch here for the Bills, taking on Joe Burrow and the Bengals on Sunday, 1 p.m., and then they will take on their rivals kind of this year and the division leaders, the Patriots, in the following week. Remember, the Patriots got them in Buffalo earlier on in the year. 315-437-7644. That's the phone number to call, and the phone lines are open the rest of the show here as we're with you every weeknight, 5 to 6 p.m. on Drive Time. If you want to talk Orange football, if you want to talk Orange basketball, you can give a ring right now, and we will get you after this timeout. I do want to talk more about who could potentially be the next defensive coordinator for Syracuse football. Who are some guys that come to mind for me? And Fran Brown seemingly ruled out one of the guys that might have been jumping top of mind for some of you yesterday when he spoke on National Signing Day. And we will talk some Orange basketball as well. What are the chances that Syracuse basketball makes the NCAA tournament after the monumental win back on Tuesday night against Tennessee? We'll dive into that and a little bit more as we continue with Drive Time here on ESPN Radio, QSportsTalk.com.
This is Orange.
Yeah, I mean, 5-star immediately when someone else gets him, of course. Calvin Russell. Phone's ringing, Gio. Mike, I think you're I was sort of like hesitating as I was saying. I just saw your comment. I know this drama is all odd for us, but this is what happens when you swim in these waters. I was sort of hesitating. Maybe I shouldn't have been as strong when I said earlier, like, you don't really see this where someone decommits or doesn't decommit. They don't sign and then they sign later. Maybe you'd have a better answer on that, but it does feel like we're also just swimming in different waters and this is going to be more common maybe. Like Fran was kind of calm, like, yeah, it's just the nature of the business. This is what happens. Gio, we gotta... Okay, he's got it. He's going to get to the... Yeah, he's got it. That would be wild, LSU. Yeah, Steve Gregory. I don't know what Florida State's going to do. I'd imagine they keep their staff just because Norvell is coming back. Maybe they're making changes. Did I miss anything there? I think faster paced bowling ball. They got too many athletes. They want to get out and run. That's how Red wants to play. I know it's kind of turned into half-court defensive games at times, like physical grinders. And that's because they do have the athletes on defense now, but they want to force turnovers and push pace. And, you know, that stretch of the Dome where it got as loud as I can remember in recent memory there. I wasn't at the Dome, but still just like hearing it on the TV, and I've heard a lot of people say that. That is what they want to be, is a team that William Kyle blocks a shot. They run down the floor, alley-oop to Sadiq White. They want to be a team that's getting out and running in the open court. That's why I think Red has spent so much time on defense, and he's talked about offense is not as much of a priority. Yeah, Ryan. Dominique Darius made some big plays late last night. She's got a little bit of a turnover issue the last couple games, but she stayed in it, and she's definitely going to be a key piece for them throughout the season, and also just one of those players they can count on late, which you need that. I was talking a lot about that with Kyra, how you have Deasia Fair 2 years ago, and not to just dumb it all down to Deasia Fair, but she made such a difference in late game situations, and it was good to see Layla and Dom and Sophie makes the steal. Like, their veteran players stepped up late last night. Yeah, Allman had a bad turnover there. It was a sloppy game. I mean, there were 50 combined turnovers. Well, I don't blame Steve right now when I was driving around earlier today. No. I'm just joking. There's pros and cons no matter where you live, really. In terms of weather. I don't know if it's, I mean, we'll see if it's Kiffin. It does seem like a school that has made the, like Florida State hasn't been trending up. Florida, obviously, new coach, but yeah, that was the right call. It wasn't anything too crazy, the flagrant.
Syracuse.
Rolling along with Drive Time. If you missed Orange Nation earlier today, we will be back tomorrow. We had our Galaxy Holiday Christmas party. That was a whole lot of fun. Shout out to our friends at Wildcat Pizza Pub in Camillus. We were over there earlier today. Great food at Wildcat as always. So Orange Nation back tomorrow. I'll be here tomorrow as well, 5 to 6 p.m., as we are every weeknight here on Drive Time with Tim Leonard. Phone lines remain open here on the show at 315-437-7644. And let's go to the phone lines right now. Let's start with Jordan in Baldwinsville. Hey, Jordan.
Hi. Yes, hi, Tim. The women's basketball win was very good.
Yeah.
And so was freshman UI, number 44. She had a double-double.
Yeah, Zoj. Yeah, she was great. She's been tremendous to this point in the season. 16 points, 13 rebounds last night, and she played 39 minutes out of the 45 in an overtime game. And the biggest thing with her, Jordan, I know you've probably been following throughout the season, staying out of foul trouble. She got in foul trouble, picked up that fourth foul, and Coach Jack trusted her, and she did not pick up that fifth foul, which was great to see.
Yes. What was it like? I listened to you on the radio broadcast. What was it like calling the game with Kyra Wood?
It's been great. Kyra has been really fun to call the game with. Of course, it's kind of unique to get someone who has just come off the court playing for that coach for 3 straight years. And for those that haven't followed closely, Kyra Wood is pursuing a graduate degree in Newhouse, broadcast and digital journalism. So it's great. It's great to have her on this side of things, and I think she's done an awesome job so far for not doing a ton of games to this point.
Yes. Well, we'll switch over to men's basketball.
Yeah.
Do you have any information on Donnie?
I don't. I mean, I at the time of the injury, my sense of it is that it wasn't anything that was long term, and Red has kind of said that. I would imagine that they were kind of thinking it was maybe like a 2-3 week deal when it first happened, and maybe 4 weeks max. So I mean, I don't know. I think Coach Autry is still waiting to see how he's progressing, but I think it was a good sign that Donnie wasn't in a boot for that Tennessee game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I appreciate you checking in, Jordan. Anything else you want to get to? Or
nope.
Okay.
Good show.
All right. Thank you, Jordan. That's Jordan in Baldwinsville. Let's go to Govendo in Syracuse. Always wants to talk SU basketball. What's up, Matt?
Hey, Tim. TL, should I say?
Yeah, TL. You got start every phone call now with TL, or else, I don't even know if you've been listening.
I have been listening. So we talked the other night, the game and you said, "Hey, you're being optimistic." I appreciate that, which is great. But I was being real.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you called it, I guess.
I was. Well, I also called the Kansas game, and I said we would lose to Houston, which we did. But what does this team look like, and can we uphold our defensive intensity when Donnie comes back, if he comes back?
Yeah, why not? I mean, Donnie, I think, has improved on defense, and I think we're seeing the improvement from a lot of guys on defense, whether that's from game 1 to now where they are at in the season going into game 9, or just J.J. Starling, a returner. I mean, can you imagine if I would have told you at the start of the year that J.J. would be on Grant Ament, who's 6'10", and that would not be a problem for us? Now, I think Ament just had an off game, but that's a potential top 5 pick, or at least a lottery pick, and J.J. held his own against him. So it does feel like the intensity and everything they worked on in defense is going to continue to translate to game action, would be my guess. I'm not worried about the defense. I think this will be
not at all.
Yeah, I think it'll be a top 30 defense throughout the year. I think we've seen enough now. We've seen them go up against legitimate, great teams that run good stuff, are well coached. You're talking Bill Self, who's one of the smarter minds in the game, and I think they've held their own against everyone defensively except for that second half against Iowa State, and that was really because they were turning over the ball on offense.
Now, where do you rank the interview with Cayenne?
That was awesome, wasn't it?
It was up there with the 96 Cuses in the house.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It was legit. And I find myself just laughing every time I run across it on a reel.
Well, it's a great interview. I think it shows that this team is really connected this year. And it also just sort of shows that was a big monkey off their back, not only for Red, but for the players. And they knew the importance of that game. And it has to be weighing on them trying to get Syracuse basketball back to where it needs to be. I mean, they work really hard in practice. And I know you get to go occasionally, Gavendo, and I'm sure you'd say the same thing. This team is really bought in from the offseason onward. I've been very impressed by the culture and how much that they are going after it. And we talk about level 5, and Red's always saying level 5, but they really are practicing very, very hard, working very hard with the new strength coach. And I think that was a monkey off the back feeling. And that was what the guys were sort of showing there in that fun interview.
The good thing about it is I'm able to, when you're at the Dome, it's hard to concentrate on just the game because there's so many people. It's so big. But I was able to watch Red, and he coached the hell out of those kids all game long. He was into it, and shout out to him because he's obviously trying really hard to get some wins, which he needs to. But I just wanted to give him a little props because it was good to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you checking in, Gavendo. Good stuff, as always.
Take care, TL.
All right, thank you, man. That's Gavendo in Syracuse. Your phone call could be next at 315-437-7644. Rob in Connecticut has really started something with this TL. Just got to embrace it at this point, I think. But maybe it'll wear off in the next week or so. Rob told me to embrace it. He thinks I should just run with it. I don't know. Maybe we can throw that up as a poll on our Twitch stream. Should I just embrace it at this point or not? Is TL the nickname that is going to stick here? But I will say, on the note of Red coaching very hard, I do think it'd be impossible to track, but I think if we could measure how much Red is standing up in year 3 compared to year 2 and year 1, and how much he is pacing the sideline and getting after the refs and getting after the guys and constantly clapping. And he is coaching a little bit more actively on the sideline and aggressively. And he looks like a coach that understands every game is really important and every minute of every game could matter for a team that knows they are fighting to get back into the NCAA tournament. So on that note, when we return, I will give you my percentage chance right now, if I had to pick, that Orange basketball is going dancing this year. As we sit here on December 4th, after the Quad 1 win over Tennessee, what are the percentage chances that Syracuse basketball is getting back to the NCAA tournament? And if you'd like to drop your percentage chance, you can call in at 315-437-7644. 76-44. Back with more of Drive Time on ESPN Radio, QSportsTalk.com.
Be sure to tune into
ACC did have a tough night last night. There were some tough matchups for them. Would have been good to see Louisville get the win. ACC's much improved, though. I mean, they've got 8 teams right now in the top 45 in the net. I don't know. I guess I could go back and figure out how many they had last couple years. I can't imagine it was more than 5 or 6 at this point in the top 45 in the net. You know, Syracuse is 70th in the net, and I think they're team 10 in the ACC. So that's good. I mean, the formula you want here is Syracuse being much better, which I think we agree they are much better than what they have been under Red or even last couple years of Boeheim. And you want the ACC to be probably slightly better to much better, honestly. You'd be fine if the ACC is just a juggernaut. %69, nice. Yeah, I think we're going to be saying the words net a lot. We're already saying it. It's December 4th. And the way their schedule lines up, they should bank some wins and then go into a tough stretch in March. So whether they don't do well in the early part of the schedule or not, they're going to have a lot of opportunities to get wins that are meaningful in February or in the late part of the ACC schedule. Got to pummel the bottom, right? Yeah, you do have to win by as much as possible. Q's Vegas, no new news on Calvin Russell. We did get a nice tip from our friend Mike McAllister. Got to turn off my YouTube. And he said that it is not Miami or Michigan that are involved. It's more Florida, Florida State, and LSU that have swooped in here late. And remember, Fran Brown was saying there's a lot of good schools in Florida that you can get your education from. I would say I'm actually kind of optimistic, weirdly, that Calvin Russell is going to sign with Syracuse tomorrow. I'm not too worried. Like, I think the narrative is, will they be able to keep up the defensive energy? I think they will, because they do that every day in practice. And I don't think we've seen them lack energy outside of the second half of Iowa State when the trip was crumbling and they were playing their third game in 3 days, and there was a lot stacked against them with that matchup and the quick turnaround. And I don't want it to make it seem like that was an excusable performance, but I mean, that is the only half they really haven't looked good defensively. Like, the Monmouth game wasn't a lack of energy to me.
Watch your favorite ESPN Syracuse sports talk shows on QSportsTalk.com.
Back in on Drive Time, final segment here with you this afternoon. If you'd like to call in right now, you can, and we will get to your thoughts on Syracuse sports. 315-437-7644. That is 4ESPN 44. If you'd like to join in on the program right now, Adrian Autry show tonight out at the Wildcat Pizza Pub. I mentioned them earlier. They were hosting our Galaxy Christmas party earlier today, which was a good time. Back to the phone lines right now, and we'll go to Matt, who is in Liverpool. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Tim, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good. So I love the Syracuse men's basketball team. I think they've improved a lot. The transfer portal has gotten a lot better. I'm very impressed with Nate King's. The center position from William Powell III, his defense, rebounding, very good. Last game versus Tennessee, the free throws have gotten better. I just like this team a lot, and I'm very optimistic going forward.
All right. You want to give us a percentage chance, Matt? You want to play the game of what is the chances right now in your mind that they're going to the NCAA tournament? You want to take a crack at it?
All right. I'm very optimistic. I'm going to go 75%.
All right. I like it. I appreciate you playing along with us. That's Matt in Liverpool. Now, time for me to give my number on that, which I was teasing before the break here. We'll have to talk a little bit about who could potentially be the Orange's next defensive coordinator tomorrow when we have time on the show. We'll be reacting to Calvin Russell's decision as well. I'm sure if you missed it and you're just joining us, still waiting on Calvin Russell. It seems like it'll be tomorrow with him. Latest reports kind of make you think that Syracuse has a decent shot here still, but it's all speculation right now. And Mike McAllister was in our Q Sports Talk chat earlier saying that the schools to worry about are Florida, Florida State, and LSU, not Michigan or Miami, who were originally involved in Calvin Russell. So that's two new head coaches with Summerall at Florida, Kiffin at LSU after that whole debacle. So we'll be talking a lot about Calvin Russell, I'm sure, tomorrow. As for Orange basketball, and what is the percentage chance right now that they make the NCAA tournament? So this is an interesting question. If you just go off of the metrics right now and the math and where Syracuse sits, it's definitely below 50% in the eyes of Vegas and the eyes of the odds makers right now. Bart Torvik is one site that gives you a number, a percentage chance currently of each team making the big dance. That number right now for Syracuse is 32%. Bart Torvik has Syracuse as team number 6 in their list of teams that are outside the bubble right now. So think first 4 out, they are team 6 on that list. First 4 out plus 2, and then you get to Syracuse. You look at KenPom. They are 63rd in the KenPom rankings. That's 10th in the ACC. They're going to have to finish better than 10th in the ACC to make the NCAA tournament. The ACC is better. The ACC had a tougher night 2 in the ACC-SEC Challenge last night. Best guess right now, the ACC is probably looking at maybe a 6-team conference or a 6-bid league right now, maybe 7. I think most bracketologies have them with teams that are in the at-large conversation right now, about 8, 9 teams, and probably 5, 6, 7 are in right now. So hopefully that gets better, but you're kind of running out of time for it to get better. Even though the ACC didn't have a great night last night, they still have 8 teams that are inside the top 45 in the net rankings right now. Syracuse is 70th in the net rankings. That is 11th among ACC teams. They're 54th on Bart Torvik's ranking, so tying back to that number, 32% chance of making the tourney. According to Bart Torvik, they have them 54th in the country. That's actually more favorable than KenPom, 63, and Evan Miyakawa's site ranks everyone in the country as well. They're 59 on Evan Miyakawa's site. The Orange right now are being buoyed by their defense, 33rd on the KenPom defensive efficiency metrics. Remember, I came on either Drive Time or a post-game show, and I made the claim that I think this is a top 30 defense, and that was when they were 50th in the KenPom defensive rankings. They started the year 100th in the KenPom defensive rankings, and their offense was 60th. Their offense is now 104 in the country. My best guess is Syracuse is about 30th in defense at the end of the year. and their offense is maybe in the 80 range. That's kind of what I'm seeing in terms of how good Syracuse is on both ends of the floor right now. What's really interesting, when you look at their projection on what each game is supposed to go like on these sites, Bart Torvik, KenPom, right now KenPom has the Orange going 18-13, 9-9 in ACC play. That would not be good enough to make the NCAA tournament, we can almost confidently say. But the interesting thing is, KenPom has them getting to 15-4 on the season and starting ACC play 5-1. And that's giving them a loss at home by just a couple points to Clemson in their first ACC game on New Year's Eve day. So they could start 6-0 in league play, but KenPom has them finishing 3-9 from that point on to get to 18-13 overall. So they're definitely going to front load their wins, it seems like. But to what degree will they front load their wins? And a lot of these ACC games are fairly close projections. So I wouldn't treat that as gospel, but it does tell you that Syracuse needs to bank some wins before they get into a tougher stretch in February when you look at their schedule. My percentage chance right now, I would put it still, as I said at the start of the season, at 51%. I know a lot of you are riding the high right now, the Tennessee game, and you probably think that number is a little bit low. I would say, let's keep in mind what the odds makers and everything are saying. I'm actually giving more of a benefit of the doubt than really what Vegas would set the number at right now. I mean, 32% on Bart Torvik. I'm saying 51%. I think Syracuse is being undervalued in these metrics. I think the eye test tells me, and you can get bogged down by looking at these numbers, the eye test tells me that Syracuse right now is the best team they've had in at least 5 years. And Syracuse right now is considerably better, honestly, than I think in year one under Adrian Autry when they did get to 20 wins. Now, the ACC is a little bit better as well, and they have 3 losses to this point in the season. But I think this team's going to win probably 21, 22, 23 games and be right on the bubble. That would be my best guess right now. I watch this team, and I've watched them compete with some of the best programs in the country, and I've watched them beat up on some bad teams like recent Syracuse teams have not. And I watched this defense in particular, and it feels like an NCAA tournament team. And I think the ACC is in a good spot where they are better enough that Syracuse won't be left out just because the ACC narrative is super down. So I do think this is a tournament team. If I had to guess, I would say they make the NCAA tournament, but I'm putting it at just 51% right now because they would be defying the odds at this point. They would be finishing better than their record projection. But I think these metrics are undervaluing Syracuse. I think their offense is better than 104 in the country, and I think we have to consider if Donnie Freeman comes back at some point, then Syracuse is going to be a better team when Donnie Freeman is on the floor, and they're already looking much, much better than they have in recent years without Donnie Freeman in their 4 toughest games of the season in the non-conference schedule. So I'll leave you with that here on Drive Time. We appreciate all of you for listening and calling in. We appreciate all of you in the Q Sports Talk chat as well as the Q Sports Talk YouTube chat too. YouTube chatters saying 70% chance the Orange make the tournament. We've got some 75%. I'm going 51% right now for Syracuse basketball to make the tournament as of December 4th. But I think we're going to be talking about this a lot more. I think we're going to be updating this throughout the season in our percentage chance, which will be a fun game to play and ride the roller coaster, as always, of Syracuse basketball. Thanks to Gio Heater for producing the show, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on Drive Time here on ESPN Radio and QSportsTalk.com.
This is our...